up. Get ready. It's going to be a very, very intense journey. Begin.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Frameskip episode 51, your weekly source for games, topics, and just all-around buffoonery. I am your host for the evening, Elijah Steele, and with me is the coach, Kyle Newman.
Welcome back, everybody.
How are you? It's been a while.
We're in that season now where we're doing our rush to get the kids ready for the state testing, which started today. And it goes pretty much this month and next month. So it's insane. I ditched today. I didn't even go to work today. So I just needed to do a brain dump, which I did all weekend, 3-day weekend. So
I totally understand that. The past 2 weeks, not counting this week, but the previous 2 weeks, one of the people I work with, one of my coworkers, was out. So basically, he's like me, where we do the shipping, the scanning, stuff like that. And with him being out, I was pretty much the only shipper we had. And it's the beginning of our busy season. So like my mind has been broken. He's back at work and everything now. So I'm not working tomorrow. I took the day off and I'm going to Scranton game hunting with Nick. So it's going to be an unwinding day, just relaxing. There's a whole bunch of like retro game stores and stuff like that it's like our preferred stomping ground for game hunting.
What are you going to be looking for?
Main thing is always going to be Vita, especially like I shouldn't even say especially now because it's always been Vita anytime I could. But the other big thing is there are certain games I'm looking for. Like I want to find a copy of Shadows of the Damned for Xbox 360. I'd love to find that. I know there's no way this is going to happen, and if I do, it's going to be like over $100. But Corpse Party for the 3DS, I'd love to try and find. Other than that,
with the crazy, like the font is a little crazy.
Yes,
for Corpse Party. Okay,
yeah, I'm a big fan of that series, and I didn't know they released it on 3DS until like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out the copy goes for like $100. So that sucks. But then other things, just finding PS3 and PSP games. They've already started, like physical copies have started to go up in price already because of the store closing. So, and even just normal games have started to go up in price. Just games that you'd never think of have started to rise. There's that game that released Best of PlayStation Network Volume 1 that had, was it Tokyo Jungle, Fat Princess? Can't remember the other two games on it. That's going for a couple $100 right now.
Which is weird because I don't even think you can play Fat Princess anymore. Like I think that was like an online only, like multiplayer only game.
It's very possible.
Right? Because they did Fat Princess Adventures for PlayStation 4, which I actually have a little bit of a soft spot for.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, I had a good time with it.
But Fat Princess, I'm 90% sure that game was multiplayer only. So I totally get going for like the collector thing of it and like just having that in your spot. But like, man, be careful.
I think the other thing is like Tokyo Jungle is only available digitally otherwise. I can't remember the other two games that are in it, but so games have already started to rise. So I'm just going to go out, find what I find, and have a fun time doing it.
You know, when I accidentally waterlogged my PS Vita, I bought a new one, and it was the light blue, the Carolina blue one.
The aquamarine.
Yeah, that's the one I got.
So pretty.
Yeah, it is. So when I picked it up, I got one of the East games. I don't know if it was Legends or Origins, and what's the other one that's on the Vita?
Memories of Celceta.
There's 7.
That's what I got.
7, 8, and Origin. Yeah, that Memories of Celceta is so good.
Those are awesome. That I didn't get that until the beginning of the pandemic. I ended up buying that off eBay. That game is great. Like that is exactly the type of game that the Vita needed a lot more of. Just like a fun action based game that you could, do some nerd tinkering in menus, and slowly like get some loot, build up your character, become more powerful. But like it was just kind of like mindless hack and slash. That game's great.
And I think that they don't necessarily need, like, they could still produce games for it if they wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, it's still like a pretty powerful system.
Funny you should say that, yeah.
Because after July 10th, Sony will no longer be doing certification for Vita games. And that includes even if somebody were to release it physical, which would be almost impossible because they stopped producing cartridges last spring.
Yeah.
So there's like no way. It's amazing that PlayAsia is still releasing limited edition Vita games because they just bought up a massive stock of Vita cartridges. Yeah,
but it's gone down in the last couple months because I've been tracking it, because that's where I got my East game is off of the PlayAsia.
Okay.
And so that their stock is dwindling really quick.
The other voice you have heard is the one, the only George Cam Newton Loftus.
You can't see because it's a podcast, but I'm doing the Superman thing, and I'm revealing a Patriots logo on my T-shirt, just like Cam would after he rushes for a touchdown because he can't throw one. I love it.
At least you acknowledge this fact.
Hey man, we talked about this. I think COVID really messed him up. I rewatched that Seahawks game where he threw like almost 400 yards and like 170 of them were to Julian Edelman. Also, R.I.P. Julian Edelman. No, like the dude's good.
Why R.I.P.?
He was injured all last year after that game.
Oh, okay. I thought for a second like he passed away.
And they let him go, didn't they?
I'm sorry, they did not.
Oh
no, he signed a massive contract. Like he was like the first wide receiver they like really paid in a while.
Okay. And
like they drafted him. I think he was like a 6th round get, something like that.
Yeah, he was one of those surprise.
And I bet Brady was pissed because like he was a QB in college at like I think Kent State, and so just like you draft another QB, it's like oh no, we're turning him into a new slot receiver. We're making him what's his name, Wes Welker 2.0.
That's like Darren Waller, my favorite tight end. He was a wide receiver in college.
How could you be a wide receiver that large? Like,
and that's why they turned him into a tight end in the NFL. That's why, like, he's basically another wide receiver for the Raiders because that's what he was doing. And then they said, "You're going to do this other thing."
It's cool. I heard George Kittle is actually a place kicker in college, so it's really nice to see people come into the NFL and just sort of like find second life at new positions. That's not true. That dude he was never a place kicker.
Well, fun fact: week 18, I guess it is. If we only have one bye, they haven't said if we have one or two byes, but the last game, our 17th game. We go into Massachusetts and we play you guys.
Yeah, I saw. I'm actually really excited for that game. My partner is a huge Cowboys fan, so it's been a rough couple years for her on a personal level. Just watching the Cowboys.
I did not know this about her. I am so sorry for her.
Well, 18 wasn't that bad. It's
last year that was super fun. That was a super fun year.
Last year was scary.
Well, that and like, the playoffs, was it 2 years ago? Like they came in, they completely like dismantled. Who was it? They completely dismantled like the Seahawks. Like they destroyed the Seahawks in like the first round of the playoffs, and then they just got systematically annihilated by the Rams. In the second round.
300-pound running back systematically destroyed our defense. That's what happened. Yeah, we couldn't stop him. So,
and Gurley hasn't been the same since.
Well. Even before then, he wasn't because he got hurt like the year prior or something like that.
And the year before that. And the year before that. And the year before that.
That's why I love running backs, but man, just don't pay running backs. I'm really sorry because like they're so good, but also like God, it's just such a short life cycle in the NFL.
But every once in a while, you get a Emmitt Smith who it was just sweetness watching him.
Saquon Barkley is so much fun to watch, but also like. Guy's been injured twice in the last 3 years.
Not when he plays the Cowboys, but yes, he is fun to watch. Now today, since I took the day off, I watched 2 NFC championship games from the 80s. I watched San Francisco and in Washington, and I think that was in 83. And then I watched the 85 Bears play the Rams with Eric Dickerson and Walter Payton.
Yeah.
And it was like that defense, like we've seen defenses, Baltimore's, we've seen the Giants, they've had a good defense.
Legion of Boom, baby. Yeah.
But nothing compares to that Chicago Bears defense. Holy crap. They were just destroying Eric Dickerson. So
that, and is also that was the Patriots' first Super Bowl, was going against the 85 Bears. So
and you know what? I remember that. I was so bored at halftime. I'm like, come on, man. But I'll never forget the fact that Mike Ditka, instead of letting Walter Payton score that touchdown, they let William Perry.
Yeah, the fridge, right?
Yep. I just shook my head. As 14-year-old me was like, what the hell? What's going on?
The disrespect. It's incredible.
Well, this is a video game podcast, so I say we get into it before Austin goes, we're in the wrong category.
I got something for us today. Little discussion. And we've been kind of having it in our little Slack. But last week, with the announcement of the PS3 and the Vita store closing down in the next few months, we've been kind of talking about games, about researching games. So I went back and I was looking at the various Final Fantasy games, right? Mm-hmm. And which ones are the best versions to get? So, and I'm talking about, okay, so we know like Final Fantasy VII, that's pretty much on every system. 8 and 9 is on the main systems, right? But like 1 through 6. So let's take 1 and 2, right? And I'm talking about the Japanese 1 and 2, not the American numbering. Okay, so you have 2 versions of that game. You have Dawn of Souls, which is on the Game Boy Advance, and then you have the PSP version.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the differences between the two? Because I have my Game Boy Advance cart, but I'm tempted to get the PSP version.
So what's interesting is I don't remember the differences, but I also looked up the same exact thing. And I found the answers to all of the games. 1 and 2. Now, I'll get into trying to remember the differences in a moment. But do you remember it's 1 and 2 on PSP, 3 on DS, 4
on PSP.
I think that was PSP one. 5.
I think was PlayStation 1.
5 and 6 was PS1.
So
because it was that anthology.
Right. I believe 5, you could also, it came on the Game Boy Advance as well. But 3 and 4 is on the DS as well.
Yeah, because 4 is also on the Game Boy Advance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't condone this, but I will say, sometimes it's late at night, sometimes you're bored, sometimes you got some money burning a hole in your pocket. If you were to just search these games on eBay and then add a word at the end of the search, I don't know, like reproduction or whatever, like who's to say what word you add at the end of Final Fantasy IV when you're searching on eBay? There's games available and they're not incredibly expensive. It's the damnedest thing. It really just depends on what's that last word you may or may not add to your search. Not that I condone any of this, but I'm just saying that's an option.
Because I know for 2, there is a difference between the Game Boy Advance version and the PSP version. Like, I think the Game Boy Advance version, there was an issue with the job system or something, or the leveling up or something like that. So they toned it down. The difficulty level for the Game Boy Advance version is lower than on the PSP. But I remember the cartridge or the cases for the PSP. One was blue and one was red. So I think I'm still gonna buy those 2. I have 3 and 4 on the DS, but I'm also tempted to get 3. Can you get 4 on the PSP as well? I know you can.
You can.
That's 4 is the big one. Yeah, that has the 3. I was watching Colin Moriarty's review on that when he was still at IGN.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So with all 3 portions of the game, it's like 70 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty unreal. Like Coach alluded to, we were talking about this in the Slack, and like, I can't speak for Elijah, but I personally have spent a lot of money on the PlayStation Network in the past week or so. And I didn't grow up with a PSP. I didn't get one until like the PSP Go was like on discount, basically. Like, I think I grabbed that for like $150 and it came with like a bundle with 3 games. So I've always thought of PSP games as like digital experiences. And I never had a PlayStation 1. So for me, like, there are certain games that I want to see on my shelves, and it's always like Xbox, GameCube, DS, Wii, like, and that generation and up, basically,
Right.
is the stuff I want to see. But like for PlayStation 1 and PSP, like, I don't care if I have it digital or not. So it's actually been kind of great just going through the PlayStation Network. I went through my entire download history list on my PlayStation 3, 773 items. That includes like DLC, apps, crossplay games. So if I buy a game on Vita and it's crossplay on PS3, then that shows up twice, kind of deal. I've got a lot. I didn't have nearly as many PlayStation 1 games as I thought I did. And for me, like, I have no qualms with just looking at them like on my cross media bar and playing them that way. Like, I almost prefer it just because it's like what the PlayStation Classic should have been. You know, it's been really nice just going back over my history. And I noticed some interesting trends. I downloaded roughly 1-to-1 PlayStation 3 demos as I did games. And that was like in the front half of the PlayStation 3 library. It was probably like 3-to-1, where I was just downloading every single demo I possibly could. Yep. And then PlayStation Vita, I bought 3 times as many games as I did demos, which is interesting. And I love the PlayStation Vita. I think it's incredible, especially because it can play PSP games. It can play PlayStation 1 games. It can play Vita games. Man, the PSP is just such a better quality library than the Vita ever had a chance to have. It's
to
incredible.
Know that you could play Symphony on the night on it on the go is awesome.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
Yes.
It's great.
Definitely.
I have what is it? Dracula X Chronicles?
Yes. I remember when that released, man. To this day I still remember it. Maybe it wasn't that. It was, did it come out for PSP?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
okay.
Blood Ties or Bloodlines, something like that.
Well, no, that was the Sega Genesis.
Oh, okay. I thought it was remade into a PSP game. Like, was that Rondo of Blood? Was that the remake?
Rondo of Blood. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds
okay.
So Dracula X Chronicles is a 2.5D remake of Rondo of Blood for the PSP. What's the other one that I have then? I have another Castlevania game for PSP.
It's hard to tell, man. They like I don't even like the Castlevania games that much. I respect them. That's just like not how I really want to play games. But man, their names are beautiful and confusing.
Wait, say that again. Hell. What did you say about you not wanting to play?
Oh, that's just like I don't really like Metroidvania style games.
Oh, okay,
that much. Right. And so no disrespect, because like the art is gorgeous. Everything seems like mechanically very finely tuned, like almost like a fighting game that you're like going on an adventure through. That's just not really what I want to do. Like, I'm more of a hack and slash guy, but like, man, the names are both gorgeous, like Harmony of Despair. I'm just like, oh, that's really pretty. Also, it means absolutely nothing, you know?
Dawn of Sorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. Just stuff like that. I'm like, wow, that's like a really that's like high school lit magazine poetry right there. Well, and there's a time and a place for it. Don't get me wrong.
Well, Bloodstained, which is the one that's more 8-bit? Is it Curse of the Moon?
Curse of the Moon.
Yeah.
Right. The second one just had a limited run release.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was able to pick that one up.
Also, if you'll notice, all of the Castlevania games for Nintendo's library, I want to say it's starting with the DS. Actually, I think almost all Castlevania games starting PS2 era all had a musical tone to the name. Lament of Innocence, Dawn of Sorrow, or maybe Aria of Sorrow was one. Like all of them have some sort of musical
illusion.
Tone, like in their name.
You know, I think this series hit its peak in the Game Boy Advance and DS.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Circle of the Moon was one of the first games that came out for the Game Boy Advance. And because at that time when it came out, nobody had a backlit screen, right? It was hard to play because it was dark. But once you got that Game Boy player, man, let me tell you what, it looked good. So right now I think is the time to get as much as you can on your PS Vita. And usually I do try and get physical, but right now I don't care. I'm just getting.
And that's, I'm all about physical collecting. Right now, it's much more about, as much as I would like to spend this money on physical games, these games are going away and not coming back. I can get a copy of AW Phoenix Festa 2 years from now. I can't get a copy of Attack on Titan for Vita 2 years from now.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like focusing. You mentioned you spent some money on PlayStation Store this week. Now, I haven't bought anything for PSP or PS3 yet. I just made those lists. They're all good to go. I can start getting that stuff. I must have spent $300 to $400 on the Vita in the past 2 weeks.
Really? I've only got a couple games for Vita. I'd be honest, like, I absolutely adore the Vita, but like looking over like my history, I'm like, okay, I got really into like 10 games, on the 10 years that we've had the Vita, 9 years that we've had the Vita, however long.
9.
And it's like,
February 2011.
I got obsessed with it, but then I forgot, like, oh no, I played a lot of PSP games on my Vita. Like, I played a lot of PlayStation 1 games on my Vita.
But, the PSP, Sony backed that and they supported it.
Yeah.
There were a lot of games for it. It sold a lot. I mean, like, it didn't, fade into obscurity like the Vita did,
it was just so interesting that it was like, okay, we want to put a Killzone game on PSP, but we can't put a first-person shooter with Killzone because that's just, we don't have the power for it. Like, okay, let's do an isometric third-person shooter where it's like almost like XCOM style. Like, they just found a way to make stuff work. And then, like, I was looking, like, there was a crossplay game on PlayStation 2 and Wii called Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law, and it was like a funny version of Ace Attorney, basically, where it's like a point-and-click adventure. You had to like put cases together. And it was just like, oh man, how do they find a way to make this work on PSP, but then they just didn't care about this on Vita? And that was like, I really think licensed games sort of trending away was just like the wrong time for Vita to be successful. Like, I think it needed that sort of like casual games market to succeed, and it just completely disappeared. And then it became like the hardcore gaming machine, which is like really cool. Like, there's some incredible games on the Vita, but there was no just like rising tide to lift all ship. There was no like, besides Lego, like there just wasn't a whole lot of like casual third party support. But then looking back on it, man, the PSP library is just absolutely bonkers insane. It is so good.
Well, Tactics Ogre is another one that I need to pick up.
Oh,
PSP.
It's $10 on PSN for that game. Like, that's insane. And I assume, let's see, you guys vamp a little. I'm gonna look something up.
So some of the Vita games I purchased off the store recently, I bought 3 of the Atelier games. I have Atelier Sophie for the PS4, and I played a little bit of it, and it was really good. I just got distracted because if I'm playing a JRPG, I prefer to play it on like the Vita or Switch. I picked up those. I picked up Excel World vs Sword Art Online, Root Double, a visual novel set in the same universe as Root Letter, which I played. I really enjoyed Root Letter. I can't remember everything off the top of my head because it's me trying to remember 15 things at once, but there are so many things on Vita. So a big thing for me is a lot of these games you can get somewhere else, but I will always prefer to play them on Vita. JRPGs, visual novels, I could get them on PS4, but Vita I prefer to play because like a JRPG would be one of those, I need to grind a little bit. Oh, I'm watching this TV show. Just grind while I'm watching the TV show and then just put it into sleep mode. Later in the day, I've got 10 minutes, power on, I'm right back to grinding again. Stuff like that. I love the Vita for stuff. And that's why I'm going to grab all the Atelier games. There are like 7 that aren't physical. And thank you, Koei Tecmo and Square Enix, because they never dropped the price of any of their games on Vita.
Yeah, pretty absurd.
What game?
So Dragon Quest Builders is $39.99.
That was on the Vita?
Yes.
Yeah, the first one was. It was awesome on the Vita.
No way. I didn't know that.
It was
wow.
great. It is great on Vita. My friend
Attack
Fabio, who is on this podcast once, he bought it for me for my birthday for Vita. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no physical copy, which sucks.
Oh, so it's all digital.
Yeah. Attack on Titan is $49.99. That's a Koei Tecmo game. Koei Tecmo put on like Samurai Warriors 4, Samurai Warriors 4 Empires, Samurai Warriors 4 2, and they're all $39.99. And it's like, I don't know what the differences are. I don't know what is like, is one different story? I don't know. So I want to look into that and find out. But yeah, all their games are normal price, and it sucks.
I did buy the Ratchet and Clank remaster collection.
Ooh.
About 3 weeks ago, because that's when I'm like, okay, I couldn't find it. And I think it was before they announced that they were closing it, or maybe it was right when they did. I forget when, but I bought it. And you know how much of a pain in the butt it is to purchase and download on the PS3?
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about this, because I thought my PlayStation 3 was broken. I had to message the group, like the podcast Slack, and I was just like, can you guys buy games on yours? Because I can't. And like I have a PlayStation Vita in storage, which I thought I packed with me before I moved. I did not. I'm very sad. I'm also super paranoid that it was stolen. We'll see. Really excited to find out, because I had all my Vita games and all my all my 3DS games. So I'm simultaneously freaking out and excited to get it back. Then I got a PlayStation or a PS Vita 2000, like the aqua blue one that Coach has too. And that is really great sometimes. Other times it just like randomly shuts down if I open an app on it. So I've like resorted to system defaults multiple times. I'm like, do I need to replace the battery? I'm looking into it. I'm on like the Vita Reddit trying to figure stuff out. Don't worry about it. But it just shuts down. So I was like, okay, screw this. I'm going to go on my PlayStation 3. And then there's no purchase option. There's no put in cart option the way I remember there being 10 years ago when I was in college. So I was like, what the hell's going on? And Elijah was like, oh, yeah, as long as the thumbnail image is selected, you press X, that'll add it to your cart. I'm like, where the hell did the purchase button go? Like, who got rid of that? Who thought that was a bad idea?
At 6:12 today, one of my coworkers messaged me, does your PS3 store have the button missing to buy things? Like, I can click on it when I guess where the cursor is. The store is also not showing what I purchased. As far as I can tell, if I bought it already, it will give me that you can't purchase this at this time. Otherwise, it will go in my cart.
Ridiculous.
And I literally just screenshotted our conversation from yesterday. Because, yeah, it's really weird. So it's like, it's as if the button is there. Like, your cursor is on the button, but it's invisible. And I don't know what is going on.
It's a mess.
It's just the store being broken.
It's a GD mess. That's all I'll say about it.
And we were talking beforehand, and I have heard actually a couple other people say they think the same thing as me. And if it's true, I wish Sony would just come out and say it, because it would make the sting a little less. I think the whole idea is starting with the PS4 into the PS5 store. You know how it's backwards compatible, like everything is combined in that. I think the idea is this store is the future, is PlayStation from here on out. Like, they're getting it more cohesive the way it hasn't been before. And this old online architecture is not fitting in. And I think the whole idea is they're shutting this down. That way, from here on out, there isn't these different PlayStation stores. It's just there's the PlayStation store, and there always will be. Which I don't know the back end of anything that was going on or whatever, but I think that's the idea. But I wish they would just say it.
That's great. That's great and all, but also I can't forgive them for shutting out 5 out of 7 consoles that they've released, you know?
Yeah.
Between PS1, PS2, PS3, Vita, PSP, like, they're just ignoring, until the PS4, I guess, 20 years of, like, history. And, like, I'm not even talking about, like, I could give fewer craps about, like, not being able to play a game, but it's just, like, the fact that, like, no, this is, like, 3D art that existed in 1996. And this is the only way people can enjoy this,
Yep.
either A, affordably, or B, legally. Like, and you're just throwing that into a trash can. That is like ridiculous to me.
Well, at this point, I wouldn't worry about. I assume when you say illegally or legally, you're talking about ROMs.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, I think the whole question about ROMs and emulating is for games that are being sold new right now. Like, for instance, if you were to, the Dreamcast, easy game to burn a game onto a CD, mod it so you could play it, right? So, for instance, one of Elijah's favorite RPGs from the Dreamcast is
Skies of Arcadia.
Right. So if I were to go and download the ROM and burn it and play it on my Dreamcast, you're not taking money from anybody right now.
That's
all it
point.
is. Yeah. But if I were to go and Ghost of Tsushima or something like that, or how the everything's leaking online. If I were to do that, or any even PS4 games or whatever, then you're taking money away from the developer.
Because I'm looking up right now how much Skies of Arcadia costs for the Dreamcast if you wanted to get a physical copy of it.
And it was $120 at the beginning of the pandemic on GameCube. That's what I was
much more than that now.
I would assume so. Yeah.
It is my second most valuable game in my collection. So for the Dreamcast, if you were to get just a disc of it, not even the case or anything like that, just a disc, it would run you about $70.
Which isn't that bad. I mean, that's about the price of a new game. So
yeah.
And also, those cases are super easy to make your own.
Right. Yeah. They're just CD cases, right?
CD cases, the art itself is super small. So, you don't need, a huge DPI printer to do it. You could do it really easily.
If you wanted to get the game with the manual and case,
CIB,
$135 is how much it would cost.
What's the GameCube version?
So,
about $350?
For just the disc, $124.
Ridiculous.
Wow.
For the disc plus case plus manual, it's currently at $188.
See, and that's why the Dolphin is such a good thing now, because they've made so many updates to it. And so if you wanted to play that, if you missed out and you don't have the money, now I could do it because I have the GameCube disc and I have a modded Wii, so I could rip it and then take my flash drive and put it into my computer and then, go ahead and play it. But if you didn't have that money, right, and you didn't have a Wii and you didn't have a GameCube or anything like that, you can still play those games and it'll look phenomenal.
Well, that's the thing too, is I think with the store shutting down, with Wii Virtual Console, the WiiWare game specifically going away, and after this, it's only a matter of time before the Virtual Console on Wii U goes away. I remember coming home from work one night being super confused about which store was closing and spending $100 on N64 games because I thought the Wii U Virtual Console was closing down. I'm like, oh no, I just didn't buy the one Castlevania game that I should have bought, the WiiWare exclusive one. That's on me, my bad.
I did get the one WiiWare. I did get I didn't buy the Castlevania, but I bought the Contra.
Okay, yeah, that was
it's the Rebirth. One. It's the Rebirth series. Yeah. So there was Contra, Castlevania, and there was one more. I forget what the third game was.
I'm getting to the point where I no longer care about the legality of it. Coach, you're totally right. If you guys wanted to provide this thing that was available for a long time and be a reasonable price, if you want to find a new way to get money out of me, the same way that Nintendo let me buy Virtual Console games on my Wii, and then $1 to upgrade NES games on my Wii U so I could play them on the gamepad, and then charge me for them again on my 3DS. Okay, that sucks. That's fine. I'll do it, but I'm not happy about it.
Right.
At least you still have that ability.
Still have the ability, exactly. But no, dude, at this point, screw you guys. I don't care. We had this thing that worked, and instead of trying to fix it and trying to accommodate, and instead of trying to really embrace what you guys did, Sony used to be just such a cool, weird thing. And now I don't think they're nearly as cool. I don't think they're nearly as weird. I don't think they're nearly as interesting, to be completely honest. And I think we're going to talk about that as our main topic. But like, they're taking away the ability to do it with relative ease, because it's not even easy to do. So well, like, no, screw you guys. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll figure it out.
And it's the same thing as the Mario 35th anniversary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're pulling it, right? For what reason? When you have the ability to just buy and download, you know, like I just, you know, it shouldn't be that hard to source out a company to integrate PSP, Vita, PS1, PS2 games onto the store that we have now. There should not be any reason why it wouldn't take that long. Now, maybe they will. Maybe that's why they're shutting it down and eventually they're going to merge them into there. I don't know.
That's what I'm hopeful for. I wrote an article for a website called App Trigger where I'm just like, okay, this is why it's a good thing, because it's going away so it can come back, you know? But I don't think, I was talking about it with Elijah before we recorded, I don't think like half the licenses are going to be there, you know? Like,
yeah.
I don't think we're going to be able to play like the original PlayStation 1 Medal of Honor on PlayStation 5 ever. Like, looking back, it's a miracle that it ever existed on PlayStation 3. Destruction Derby, it's Jet Moto, like all these games, shocking that they came to PlayStation 3 in hindsight. And I don't think we'll ever be able to play them on a new Sony device ever again. And that's just insane to me, just from an art perspective, where it's like, how could you possibly ignore years of progress in like 3D environment design, character design? You literally see more polygons being added to each game that came out in subsequent years to get to get us where we are now. Like, it's just from like
the evolution.
Perspective. From an art perspective, it's like unconscionable that they're just getting rid of 20 years worth of crap, you know? It's so bizarre.
And like, I'm a huge PlayStation fan, but even all this, it sucks. And it really puts a damper on things, because like, the Vita isn't even 10 years old. The Wii U has a longer lifespan than the Vita.
Yeah.
Like, or at least I think the Wii U came out in 2013 or
no.
Oh,
the Wii U. Sorry. It was 12.
2012. Okay.
Yeah.
So the same year. So the Wii U is having a longer lifespan than the Vita. The Wii U.
Yeah, it's not great. Also, I think the Dreamcast outbeat it, because like, weren't there new games coming to the Dreamcast in like 2009 and stuff still?
Well, like just a few years ago, there was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's insane. That's awesome. Good.
I mean, you can still buy it like PC version or the PS4 version, but you also had that one option that you could buy a Dreamcast, just because you remember like 2011, 12, around there. You know, retro gaming was big. I mean, it's still big now, but I mean, like, it was huge, you know?
Yeah.
It was before HDMI and all that stuff, right? We were just trying to get whatever we could. So to keep with that, it was just the momentum. So developers threw Retro Gamers a bone and said, okay, you know, keep your Dreamcast around, because, you know, every once in a while, someone will drop a new game on the Dreamcast.
Awesome. That's freaking awesome. That's so cool. Sorry, listeners, for us like going through and like venting still, because I know we've been talking about this for probably like 3 weeks now. I think like this is like our like anger stage of like the 5 stages of grief. Like, I think we're getting close, and then we're just going to get super drunk probably this summer and record a podcast talking about like all of our great memories with the PSP, the PS3, and Vita as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
100% in,
because it's closing around my birthday. So there's nothing I want to do more than turn 31 and then talk about a PlayStation device I bought 15 years earlier and just friggin' cry about it.
You know, when I think of the PS1, I think of demo discs in the back of the magazine.
Yeah.
Oh man, those were awesome.
Still have a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, like,
couldn't afford games, but I could afford to sneak a magazine into my parents' shopping cart when we went grocery shopping and get them that way. Yeah,
I have a couple of those nice demo discs that say Pizza Hut. Nice. Remember when Pizza Hut had those demos?
Yes.
Oh man! But
you go back and it was so exciting, and like, young kids these days, they'll never know that. Like, they'll never understand the hustle that we went through, right? Like even during that time with the PS1, you know, there wasn't YouTube. There wasn't video reviews. There was nothing. It was word of mouth.
Oh yeah.
Right? I remember at that time I was all about like the 989 sport titles like Game Day, Game Breaker, right? So I was all about those. And because I migrated from Madden to that. But then I noticed one day my brother-in-law was playing this game and he had this manual. He was like 7th grade. And I'm like, dude, what game is this? I was like, what? He's like, oh, this is Final Fantasy VII. And I'm like, whatever, man. And then went on my way. But, you know, it was like kids during recess, that's how you learned about games, right?
Yeah.
The levels in the original Zelda, that's how we learned it. Where do you burn the bush? You know, like it was just by word of mouth.
That or it was by that magazine you snuck in your parents' cart.
Well, let's see.
That was how you learned about stuff.
Right. Yeah. So there was Game Pro, right?
Yep.
There was the Xbox magazine.
Mm-hmm.
What was Sony's? Did Sony have one?
Yeah, they had an official
PlayStation magazine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those were the three, you know, magazines that usually always had a demo disc with it. You know?
Too bad Nintendo stuck with carts for so long. It was hard to attach a cart to Nintendo Power.
But they if you were a member of their magazine, every once in a while you got that video, the VCR, VHS cassette of whatever Star Fox.
See,
I didn't read that. I was usually reading Wizard as a kid, like the comic magazine. That was my jam.
I read a couple issues of that. Yeah.
Okay.
There were a lot of good magazines back there. That was where I read and found out about the games, you know?
Yeah.
Somewhere I still have the PS2 launch issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly. Which awesome. Was this like it was super thick. It was super thick, all about the launch of PS2.
And how it was like Tekken Tag Tournament 2, X Squad, and that was pretty much it. Smuggler's Run, Fantavision. Have fun, guys. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll put a pin in that for today just because this isn't going away anytime soon. And I guarantee you on July 2nd or right after, that's when the first round of drinking is going to begin. August 27th is when the second round of drinking will come in. But I do want to ask you guys what you've been playing this week. And the certain reason is there are two games I really want to talk about that I feel like don't get enough credit and get too much credit.
Go for it.
So I want to start with the one that doesn't get enough credit. And that's, I'm just about done with the single player campaign of the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
That game is so good. I'm having a total blast.
Yeah. It's weird. I bought that game launch day. Had an absolute blast with it. The story's incredible. It's a Miss Marvel game that occasionally lets you play as other characters.
Yes.
Everyone dunks on it. That game's great. The game as a service, the end game is annoying and frustrating. But besides that, like, no, dude, that game's super fun to play. I don't really understand the hate it gets all the time.
I think the writing is good. Like almost every cutscene, I'm like, I really enjoy these characters.
Yeah, it's a great comic book story. And it does a really good job of mixing different prominent comic book ideas about like where AIM came from, what's going on in the ending, which I'm not going to spoil, but the origin of a certain supervillain, what happens in a world without Avengers. Like, I think there's just really interesting ideas there that is sort of like the, I don't want to say 21st century version of the Ultimate Universe, but I guess like the post 21st century version of the Ultimate Universe, where it's like so much about the Ultimate Universe when it cropped up back in the early 2000s was all about how do we react to a new millennium. And I feel like we as a people sort of have a general malaise about where we are currently in the new millennium, where it seems like things are getting worse, not better. And back then we thought things were only going to get better, you know? And so like, I feel like this does a good job of capitalizing on sort of like that fatigued energy that we're all feeling right now, especially in the middle of a pandemic. And it's just an interesting melding of ideas. It's great.
You mention these certain villain in Marvel. I have always been curious about that character. And it's really neat to see it because I'm like, there's no way this is the final villain. Oh, it is. Okay. But I just find it so fascinating because I was like, how did this villain come to be? Because I've never read anything on them. But yeah, it is a super fun game. And especially now you can get it for like $20-$30. I can't recommend it enough. Also, I never played the PS4 version. But I found out what the loading time difference is on the PS4 version on a PS4 Pro compared to the native PS5 version is. A loading time that they timed it 62 seconds on the PS4 Pro. The native PS5 version takes 4 seconds.
Jeez.
That's too fast. I don't have time to check Twitter. I don't have time to go to the bathroom or get another glass of wine. That's too fast.
And it was one of those, I never really thought of it until after I read that. Then the next time I played, and it was like, all right, and we'll just add, never mind. I started to pick up my phone. I'm like, never mind. But no, that game does not get enough credit. Everyone talks about the multiplayer and the end game, the leveling up, but you don't hear enough people talking about the actual campaign. And it's super good.
Yeah.
But the other game... Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah. I think one of your first comments you said is like, it gets a lot of hate, but you're enjoying it. I think a lot of that is now everybody is so visual, right? If you look at a video, and what was the first thing everybody said? They all freaked out because the faces didn't look like what we see in the movie theater, right? That was the biggest complaint coming from the first trailer from that movie.
So I actually had, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it has to do with that exact same thing. That first trailer, I had complaints as well. But it was about the characters, but it wasn't because they don't look like their Marvel, like their screen counterparts. The animations of the characters didn't look right to me. And that was why,
a little stiff. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why that first trailer, I'm like, that did not look good. And it's because from an actual visual standpoint, it didn't look well. But no, that's I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted
to. And I just think that people are always going to be quick to judge.
Yes.
And they're going to scream and shout. And it's just like, it's a video game. Just if you don't,
yeah. A big part of it is Hawkeye was supposed to come out in October. He just came out last month. So that was another problem people had, was all this DLC they promised wasn't showing up, and they weren't talking about why it wasn't. It just wasn't. So I think now that they're being a little more open, I think it will get a little better in the eyes of the public.
Well, that's super confusing, though, just because, I don't know, like a global pandemic, one. Two, it's super confusing about Jeremy Renner and like his legal situation about whether or not he was accosting his partner. And I saw some report that he like tried to not pay child support because of like losing work due to the pandemic. It's like, bro, I've seen you in like a lot of movies. I'm pretty sure you could swing child support this month. Yeah. And so like I think it's just like the questionableness of Hawkeye as a character in like the greater Marvel pantheon, I guess, and that's why they were like super excited to get Kate Bishop in there. Just be like, okay, we got someone who plays like Hawkeye but is not tied to Jeremy Renner. We got this. It's fine.
Well, apparently they teased Black Panther to come out right before his passing. So that one, I understand them like, we're not going to go near that right now.
Yeah.
We'll not touch that. But no, I really enjoy Avengers. It's super fun.
Wakanda DLC is this summer or this fall, I think.
Fall. And I will be there day one to play it.
Yeah, for sure.
The other game that I think gets not enough and too much credit, and it's the 2011 Mortal Kombat game. Which, fun fact, came out on Vita also.
Yeah.
I recently, the other day, I played through the entire campaign, the entire story mode, which first off, don't do that if you're playing with a D-pad, which I was, because that hurts at the end. My thumb still hurts. I got to the very last boss, and the story in that game is so good. It's super good. I was having a blast. The actual fights are terrible. And I don't mean that the gameplay is bad. I mean, occasionally it would just be like, all right, most of the time it's 1-on-1, best of 3, like best 2 out of 3 wins. But then it'll just be like, oh, right now I'm playing as Johnny Cage, and oh look, it's Katana and Jade. Best 2 out of 3, fight both of them. And I'm like, wait, what? So I barely do okay against a single fighter. Now I have to fight 2. I guess maybe it's just saying these are 2 like less stronger fighters or that. Continue the game, you have to fight Goro and Kintaro occasionally, harder fights. And then Sub-Zero, playing a Sub-Zero, oh no, I have to fight a tag team of Goro and Kintaro. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this to me? What? No. And then at one point you fight Shao Kahn, and it is the cheapest fight I've ever been in a fighting game.
That makes sense. He's a cheap ass character, so I get it.
And literally the only way I could even remotely fight him is I would have to quick jump over him, uppercut him. Then just before he goes to swing, jump over him, uppercut him. And then pay attention to his move until the next point I can jump over him and then uppercut him. Because if you hit him in his front, it's just gonna he'll just blink and then just punch you in the face. And it doesn't do any damage to him. And one of his hits does almost a quarter of your health. And it's
that jump uppercut, that was how I played Mortal Kombat 2 on Genesis. So respect, because that was my game plan. That and the foot sweep.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
But no, it's the fights in it are so cheap. And it's I hate using Liu Kang in the game. I do not like using him as a fighter. This major boss fight, you have to use Liu Kang. I'm he's too slow. He's heavy. I don't like him. Well, too bad. It must have taken me 20 tries before I beat him. And then I got to the final fight of the game, and I tried 10 times. I'm I'm just done.
Who do you think would win in a fight? Liu Kang or Seth?
Liu
Kang.
No, but in the game. In the game. If Seth got modified, who do you think, I guess not who would win in a fight. Who would you rather play as? Knowing everything about Liu Kang or just being completely surprised with a fighter modeled after Seth?
Knowing what I know of Liu Kang. You
don't want to play as Senor Blue Belt, Senor Black Belt himself?
No, if I want to get beat, I'll just go into a bad part of town.
Okay.
But this also takes me into I recently rewatched Mortal Kombat Annihilation for the first time in years.
Yeah, that movie's awful.
And I have some really, really intense thoughts. First off, I love how it looks like very bad photoshopping that somebody who just learned how to use it would make in a YouTube video.
Dude,
that's really how Outworld looks.
Someone actually talked about this on Twitter, in the past 8 months or so. It's hard to tell because time bleeds, and I don't know what day is which. But it turns out that was a first proof. And so what's supposed to happen is the movie is done with the most basic special effects possible done. And then they show okay, here's what we got to do. And then okay, here we got to touch up the CGI. Here we got to do this. Here we got to change the lighting, do all this. The movie was just approved after its first proof. And so you remember when X-Men Origins Wolverine leaked online a couple of years ago, right before he came out in 2009, I want to say 2010, maybe. It's if that movie got approved to release in theaters as opposed to leaking online.
So basically the alpha build.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Someone just saw the rough draft of the most bare bones possible technical work done to the movie. And they're screw it. It's good enough. First movie did great. This will do great. And then it just bombed and looked like butt the entire time. Incredible stuff.
Second thought was Smoke and Cyrax are supposed to be cyborgs. but you could obviously tell it's like that is literally padding on a man's back. Like it doesn't even look like a cyborg. It looks like something you'd wear to go in for like jujitsu practice.
Like a cheap Halloween costume you get at
like I'm pretty sure I could legitimately throw together a better cyborg Cyrax outfit.
Did you guys watch the animated movie that just came out?
Scorpion's Revenge? I'm 3/4 of the way through it. It is super good.
Is it really?
Yeah, I need to finish it.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it before.
Probably tomorrow morning.
I'll watch it before the movie drops. That drops at the end of this month, right?
April 23rd, which is why I've kind of been getting back into Mortal Kombat. But the other last thing I want to mention, Shiva, she's done dirty in that movie. She has like no point in the entire film. She just kind of stands around until eventually she gets crushed by a cage.
Was she the multi-arm chick in like the red slingshot bikini deal?
Yes.
Okay.
She literally is just in the occasional scene, is talked about as one of his like special commanders, and then when Liu Kang goes to rescue Katana, she literally just jumps on the thing and then the cage falls and like and dead.
Who's the chick in purple?
Melina.
Okay, Melina. Okay, she plays the mom on the OC, which is like one of my favorite TV shows of all time. That is Melinda Clarke. She's also like on Firefly and Serenity.
Oh yeah,
yeah. She's like the madam on that show at the brothel. Yeah, God, shout out to her. I wish her career blew up a little bit bigger. I love her.
So the story of the 2011 game is literally almost like the two movies combined, but actually good and with many more stakes involved.
Yeah.
And I was saying in the group, the best way to experience this game, and I highly recommend you do, is there's a movie of all the cutscenes strung together on YouTube in 1080p. Watch that. You're going to have a blast. Watch it as a movie sometime. It's super good.
Yeah, you know why no one remembers that game very well? Because it came out the same day as Portal 2. So that was the game I think most people bought that day.
And I just got my copy of Mortal Kombat 11. I'm going to play through Mortal Kombat X because it's on the PlayStation Plus collection.
Jeez.
And
didn't
apparently
11 have some issues though? Like, what was it? It was when you go up the tree or something like that. I mean, I think there was
like matchmaking issues.
No, I want to say there was I forget what it was. There was another gameplay type, and it was just going up the tree, fighting all the different.
Oh, kind of like a championship kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think there was issues with it.
Keep in mind, there's a 99% chance I will play through the story, and then it got like a major single player DLC, like second campaign that supposedly is super good. 99%, that's all I'm ever going to play.
Yeah, well, what about the DC? What was the DC fighting game?
Injustice?
Yes.
Yeah. God, those games were so good. Oh, so good.
Yeah, those comics are super good too.
Fun fact, Injustice 1 was on the Vita.
Yes, it was, yeah. No, those comics were by Tom Taylor, like really good Australian writer. Cannot recommend them enough. They're just like really good, fast-paced, like alternate Earth stories. They're super fun.
But so that's what I've been playing and watching. I want to hear from you guys. George, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a lot, but just for the sake of brevity, I'm only going to talk about one game. In 2 sittings, I played Gears of War Ultimate Edition on Xbox One with a good friend of mine, Fabio. Never played through those games co-op before. Man, those games rule. Like, this is my second time ever playing Gears of War. I played it for the first time probably like 2 years ago. I went through like the entire first 4, like leading up to 5. And I think we're going to do the entire series. Just co-op, but like, man, those games are great. They're super fun. They're dumb. They require you to think like 15% of the time, just in terms of like how you're going to advance through an area that makes the most sense. But it's not like, mind breakingly hard. Like it's not asking you to do too much. It's just awesome. And like, it was taking me back to 2006 and a friend who just got a 360 and going over to his house and seeing an HD TV for the first time. Like, it was just like super nostalgic, which is funny because like I never played that game when I was younger, but like I just got nostalgic for the era of like the, you know, mid 2000s. And it was just a blast.
Awesome box art.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it had the commercial to kick off all video game commercials.
Yeah, dude.
Like
I wrote
the real one that changed things.
I made one YouTube video in my entire life. And I talked about the 5 game trailers or 5 games that weren't as good as their trailers, but were still like good games because I didn't want to like dog on games. I don't like dogpiling on stuff. I'll dogpile on Sony, but not on like a artist who's trying to make something and comes up short. That doesn't seem right. And yeah, that was my number 2, I think, was like, yeah, the trailer for that game with like, was it Gary Jules, Mark Andrews, whoever was like
Gary Jules.
Just incredible stuff and like such a distinct tone from the actual game. I think that was why it was my number 2, because I'm just like, well, like it's not that it was bad and it's not that the game was bad. It's just that these were 2 completely different products. They just kind of lied, I guess, about the general intonation of the game through this trailer. But man, incredible stuff. And yeah, I'm super excited. I think 2 is my favorite so far.
Yes, 2 is definitely good. Yeah. 3, I remember 3 when me, Austin, and then Elijah was playing 2. We started playing like 2015. We went all through of them, and then we played 4. And I remember 3. It was almost like a chore to get through. It was like, okay, let's just get through this. Like, you know, 2 though blew me away.
2 is super good.
2 is great because it's like, okay, let's take the fight to them. Like, I think that is like one thing that I really liked. Like, it wasn't just waiting for them to get sort of like screwed over again. And you're just doing all this weird stuff. You got the butthole doors, you know, and you're constantly doing new, interesting things. And then like finding out the origins of everything was super interesting. 3, I totally agree, is like a little underwhelming, but I will say it's super interesting. Just like the color palette change in that game, because like everything in 2 is still like gray, brown, and like murky, and 3 is still that, but like you can tell they're trying because there's like a lot of orange goop in that game, you know. And also like that game is kind of funny because it reminded me a lot of Halo 3. Like when you go through like the Nexus or whatever it's called in Halo 3, and like you land on like the Zero installation, you have to like, you know, take the Hornet to go through and like shut down them recreating the rings. I'm losing like all the details of that, so I need to replay the Halo games, it sounds like, too. But like just when you go to that island in Gears 3, it feels like you're sort of like doing that all over again too. And I don't know, it's super fun. I'm excited to have this series in my life and be able to enjoy it but not take it too seriously.
Well, let me know next time you get on. I'll play with you.
Hell yeah.
I love Gears, man. That's not my jam, but it's close to being my jam. I love that series.
Super fun, man. Yeah. Like, and I was frustrated with that game when I was younger because I'm like, it takes so many bullets to kill someone. Everything's like imprecise and like janky feeling. And now I'm just like, no, this is charming. Like, this is just like only this game does this, which is what makes it special.
What was the weapon that they shoot from space?
Hammer of Dawn.
Hammer of Dawn. I knew it was something of Dawn. Yeah.
I will never ever forget that.
God, it's so good.
And
what else I'll never forget is when we were playing Forza and we got the stop sign. I'll never forget that. I'll probably have Alzheimer's. Oh my God. I won't forget that moment.
Oh my God. Just the buses behind us. As the trucks are just like, we're not waiting. George, what is the other game you wanted to mention?
Oh, I didn't actually. I don't think I have another game. I said I think I wanted to play like because that was just the most important game to me. But really quick, I remember watching G4 TV when these games were being shown off at E3, and just like seeing like the chainsaw and like the fast paced movement and like how detailed the characters were. That's when I was like, holy crap! The next generation of gaming is going to be incredible. And then you see a trailer for the original Assassin's Creed, and like Altair is like going through a crowd and just like pushing his way past people and just like bumping into everyone. I'm like, it's incredible. You've never been able to bump into that many people on PlayStation 2 before. This is the future. And it's just, stuck in like that, like I said, just mid 2000s, like optimistic cycle. It's been really fun to replay that game. So yeah, I'm stoked to jump into 2.
You can find pretty much every single episode of X Play on YouTube.
Oh no,
Yes.
I've been watching it before I go to bed. It's really great.
Oh, love it.
Coach, what about you? What have you been playing?
Okay, so I did pick up the only Pokemon game that I haven't owned on the Switch is Let's Go Pikachu, because I have Let's Go Eevee. So I picked that up, not knowing, I just wanted to get it just to have it in my collection.
Don't blame you.
And so I started playing that, but then, it happens, like Breath of the Wild started saying, play me. So I've been playing Breath of the Wild. And for my second playthrough, I have certain things that I want to do. Like, for instance, before I defeat any of the beasts, right? I want to get all 140 shrines, okay? And then I also want to power up my sword, like go through the trials, because I heard the trial is just insanely hard. So I want to go through and I want to accomplish that. And then go through and get the divine beasts, and then play I haven't played the DLC for it. So definitely do that, because there is a good chance that Breath of the Wild, with the rumors of the whole new Switch or whatever they're going to call it, that might release. But so yeah, I'm just playing that right now. And then I told myself, okay, we have about 6 months for Halo. So I think each month, I'm starting with Reach. I'm just going to go through the series again.
I don't know what your schedule's like, just because I know you work. I know you're probably going to be deployed soon. Is that what you were saying?
Possibly, yeah. We were supposed to get our deployment orders this next weekend, or this upcoming weekend, but it looks like it's May. So I'm 50-50. We may not even go if we haven't have our orders. But anyways, there's a chance that Christmas time we might be touching down in the Middle East.
Gotcha. Well, if you have the time, those games are way faster than I remember. Like Halo 1, during the pandemic, I went through with my friend Fabio last summer, same Fabio that I did Gears of War with. And it took us like 2 sittings to beat Halo 1, took us like 2 sittings, or probably 3 sittings. I think Halo 2 was like the longest one. And then like 2 sittings for 3, and then for Reach. Like those games are super breezy. And then like ODST in one shot, like, to me, like those will always be just like huge games, because I remember getting them when I was like 15. But like as an adult who like understands what to do from the get-go, and B, just like, oh no, like I played 150 hours of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Like this game is actually jack. Like this doesn't mean anything to me in terms of time sink. And so like I totally appreciate like the one at a time. I think you can bang out 4 of them in a month, man. I think you can do it.
Well, what I'm thinking about doing is just taking a weekend and just focusing on like Reach, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Hell yeah.
And then the next month I'll do the original Halo. And they got the 4K, they got the injection.
Oh, yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. So, because I want to be ready for Halo Infinite. It looks like hopefully this will be better than 4 and 5. We'll see. But you know what I haven't played in that series is the RTS games, which I do want to play.
Oh, I loved Halo Wars.
First one is great. I haven't finished the second one, but the first one is like impeccable. It's good stuff.
Coach, is there anything else you've been playing, or is that pretty much sum it all up?
No, I mean I did buy Monster Hunter, but bro, the whole jumping thing is just pissing me off. I remember I called Austin. The morning after. I'm like, bro, what the hell? This series? Why can't they just do climbing the same way that they do in Breath of the Wild? So I don't know. I just have to give it time, which I will. I mean, I'm going to give it time, but right now it's just like Breath of the Wild is saying, come play with me.
You're feeling the call of the wild to the Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we finish up, I do have my trivia.
Oh, yes.
Oh, really? Before you finish up, we got some questions.
Nice.
Reverse card.
That's right.
Reverse.
Super quick. These are from, let's see, Austin. I think I used to know an Austin.
Nah, never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
He's famous now. You forgot us.
Yeah.
Austin wants to know why Elijah is the only one playing Monster Hunter Rise, and it sounds like he's not. He just doesn't. It sounds like someone doesn't want to take the time to help coach through a new series. So
I gladly would.
So whoever asked this question should probably feel bad about themselves and should really examine what it takes to be a good friend in 2021.
Real quick, when I had been putting in Breath of the Wild, and it says friends online 2 or 3, I know that it's saying on everybody's Switch, Coach Breath of the Wild. And Monster Hunter just came out. I'm like, oh, I know they're just probably like laughing at me, goofing on me.
That's okay. Monster Hunter just came out, and I just played through the 2011 Mortal Kombat. So
yeah, Coach, you're doing great. I don't even like Breath of the Wild, but I'd rather play Breath of the Wild than 2011 Mortal Kombat. Serious question from Austin. What is your favorite game soundtrack of all time? Now, I think we could do an entire episode just talking about game soundtracks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say just like, it's okay if you change it. It's okay if you come back next week, something's wrong. I assume we will do an episode about game soundtracks at some point down the road when there's just a super quiet week and we're completely over the PlayStation Network closure. But
I'll never be over it.
Gun to each of your heads, metaphorical guns, of course, to each of your heads. What is your favorite game soundtrack of all time? Or at least of all time right now?
Halo 4.
Halo
4.
Good one. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I was going to say Halo Combat Evolved. Yeah.
So speaking of Final Fantasy VII Remake, okay, should I play through the updated kind of Final Fantasy VII or play the remake?
Updated Final Fantasy VII.
Okay.
It's one of those things, I'm not going to tell you why, but if you play that one first, you get so much more out of remake. And like, it is not a small amount more that you get out of it.
I think June, being that June is, we have 7 weeks of summer vacation. Our teachers do. So I think what I'm going to do with the month of June is going to be dedicated to both Final Fantasy VIIs. Play 7 first, or maybe even do it in May. Play the regular 7 first, and then jump in and go full bore on the remake.
And you're picking a good time because in June is when the remake gets the PS5 upgrade.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. What was announced recently for Final Fantasy VII remake?
So it was the PS5 upgrade along with some PS5 exclusive DLC. That is another, I want to say, is it 2 chapters about Yuffie?
The female character, correct?
Yes. She won't appear in remake at all, but she's one of the main party members in the original Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, so
remake up to where it's at in remake, they haven't met her yet.
All right. So what are your words of wisdom as I start the regular but updated Final Fantasy VII?
The biggest things are patience, because it takes a little bit to fully understand what's going on. The biggest thing is just pay attention to characters, because there's some stuff that could easily be missed that is very important.
Okay.
And to get the full out of Final Fantasy VII Remake, like the full, wow, I can't believe they did this or that, you would actually have to play 3 Final Fantasy VII games. Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII,
Dirge of Cerberus.
And Dirge of Cerberus.
Oh, I was joking. Oh, and Advent Children too. Come on, man. That sucks. Don't.
I guess so. Dirge of Cerberus would only really be for the new DLC. But you also would get more out of it in the main game because there's something even I didn't realize at first.
So Dirge is it Cerberus or Cerberus?
Cerberus.
Okay, that's on the DS, right?
No, that is a PS2 game. It's a third-person shooter starring Vincent Valentine, who's my favorite character from the game.
Jill Valentine?
Vincent. God, it would be a
crossover.
That's a crossover I want now. But no, it is a very bad game. So I would read a summary.
It came out around the same time as, like, what was it, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, which was, like, also like a third-person shooter on PlayStation 2 with, like, this franchise that had no real roots in the genre. Super interesting stuff.
Yeah.
It's like Armageddon and Deep Impact. Incredible.
What was the DS game that came out? I think it was a tactics game, no?
There was Final Fantasy Tactics A2, and then there was like a Final Fantasy.
DS, though.
Yeah, but I don't know if it had anything to do with Final Fantasy VII specifically.
Because the Final Fantasy VII centric games are Crisis Core, 7, Dirge of Cerberus. There's one that never came out here before called Before Crisis. It was a cell phone game. It's finally coming out in that new phone collection game thing.
Yeah, I guess Advent Children's like part of it too, right?
I just pre-ordered the 4K version of Advent Children. Crisis Core is a PSP game,
but never available digitally, only available on UMD.
Correct.
So if you can't find that game, then you would definitely want to emulate it.
At the very least, I would read the summaries of Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus, mainly for characters. But the big thing is just have fun with Final Fantasy VII, the main one. That's the important thing. That's where it all will matter the most. And it's such a good game. It's such a fun game. Honestly, before the Final Fantasy VII Remake soundtrack being my favorite soundtrack, it was the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. But yeah.
But I a couple weeks ago I got the 7 and 8, the physical copy.
Perfect.
Yeah. On the Switch.
It's so pretty. But we will end there for the day. We'll do the trivia quick, which will take only a matter of moments because it's one super easy question and one rather easy question. So today's theme is music in games. So the first one, going along with what George was talking about earlier, the song Mad World by Gary Jules, which played in the Gears of War trailer, first got popularized by what film?
All right. I know the answer for a fact. So Coach, do you want to go first?
I don't know it.
Okay. The film is Donnie Darko.
Bang. Donnie Darko is where it first appeared.
Also, the music video for that song, absolutely incredible stuff. Check it out.
Yes, it is.
What is it? Which one is it? Because I want to see it after we're done.
Mad World by Gary Jules.
Okay.
And the second question, the game Rock of the Dead, which appeared on iOS, Xbox 360, and PS3. Every single song on the soundtrack had one rock star in every song. Who was that rock star?
Wait, say that again?
The game Rock of the Dead, the entire soundtrack, every song had this same rock star in. Who is that rock star?
Jack Black?
I would assume Ozzy
I don't
Osbourne.
know.
I've never heard of
Correct answer is Rob Zombie.
That'd be good.
That makes sense.
Ozzy was on the commercials for Warcraft.
Yes, he was.
Remember?
Oh, yeah.
But we are going to end there. We're running a little long in the tooth. So before Austin kills us, we're going to keep our main topic until next week. So everybody, you can catch us on pretty much every source for podcasts nowadays. If that podcast source has a way to review things, give us reviews, it really helps. go to the YouTube, like and subscribe. Even if you never watch, that's okay. You can just listen to it. But like, subscribe, all that. On Twitter, you can find Seth at Seth the 90s Kid. Austin is at Austin J. Eller. George is at GB Loftus. Coach is at frameskippod. Never stop. And I'm at Loco Lizard Man.
Woo.
Until next week, good night, listeners.
Peace.
Good night.